I am Amy Loprest. I'm the Executive Director of the Campaign Finance Board. I am a middle-aged woman who is bald, but I'm wearing a black headdress and a bright orange sweater and sitting in a office with framed plaques behind me. Good evening and welcome to tonight's post-election hearing. Before we hear from members of the public about their experience in the November election, I will provide a brief update on the campaign finance program. With the election cycle officially behind us, the board issued more than $126 million to candidates in the 2021 elections. The board paid more than $17 million to candidates in the general election, while more than $109 million was issued to candidates for the June primary elections. This election saw a record number of public funds paid, a record number of candidates, and has led to a more diverse New York City government. Staff will now begin work on the post-election enforcement process. Similar to tonight's hearing, which is focused on the voting experience, the Campaign Finance Board will hold its post-election hearing next Thursday, December 16th at 10 a.m. regarding the campaign finance program in the 2021 elections. We expect to hear from candidates, campaign staff, advocates, and other interested observers about the impact of the matching funds program on the conduct of elections in New York City. Information provided at the hearing will help further improve our administration of the city's landmark campaign finance program and will inform legislative recommendations that will be included in the Campaign Finance Board's comprehensive post-election report, which will be published in August of 2022. Finally, I want to convey our best wishes to Dawn Sandow, who is leaving her position as Deputy Executive Director of the New York City Board of Elections to return to the Bronx office in her move towards retirement. I want to thank her for being a great partner to us at the Campaign Finance Board over her tenure at the Board of Elections. I will now turn it back over to Chair Torres before we begin public testimony.
Thank you, Amy. We'd like to solicit any other opinions or comments, questions from other members of the panel or other members of the advisory committee. The floor is open. I don't see any hands raised. Just speak up if.
I think Chris. Yeah, I think Chris might. Okay.
Sure, I'll go ahead. Good evening, everyone. I am Christopher Malone. I am a white male with brown and graying hair, wearing a maroon V-neck sweater with a maroon tie and a checkered red shirt, sitting in my home office with a white wall behind me, a mirror, and a bunch of great artwork from my 10-year-old daughter that I'm very proud of. I was appointed to this committee by Mayor de Blasio in April of 2020, so I've served on it for about a year and a half. And I dare say it's been a very eventful 18 months through several elections and pandemics, and it's been quite exciting. It's been challenging to our Board of Elections. I know it's been challenging to the citizenry, but what I have learned in that 18 months is that the post-election hearing that we're about to go through is really one of the most valuable and important ones to hear from the voters in New York City on what went right, what went wrong. And so I'm just very thankful to all of those who are testifying and grateful to those of you who cared to show up this evening to tell us what we should be doing going forward. So thanks so much.
Good. And any other statements, comments, or questions from the other members of the advisory committee? Okay, hearing none, I guess we move to the scheduled testimonies. I'm going to ask Eric and Jordan to help us manage this portion of the meeting. Eric, would you want to call on the first person to testify?
For sure. Before we a few quick notes and a short update before we move into testimony from the voters tonight. I just want to note briefly, that we're hearing, we have tonight's post-election hearing comes, after a general election that went generally pretty smoothly from an administrative perspective. A lot of the issues we've been dealing with, Chris mentioned these over the last 18 months, challenges of figuring out how to vote during a pandemic associated with the dramatic expansion of mail-in ballots and increased adoption of early voting. Thankfully, we will hear from voters tonight, but broadly, the experience seemed to go pretty well. The real takeaway, and Chair Torres mentioned this, is the persistent issue of low voter turnout. About 23% of eligible voters cast a ballot in the general election for mayor, the lowest in really nearly a generation. And that's despite the historic participation by candidates in this year's election. And Amy referenced some of the work we've done through the Public Matching Funds program, the great work that our staff has done through the NYC Votes Initiative, all of our partners working on getting voters engaged in this year's election. And I do want to highlight, two initiatives that are coming through the City Council that will impact our work that hopefully, will help us move the ball forward by expanding access to information and resources in communities that are underserved, that we're hopeful will pass before the end of the session. One is bill sponsored by Councilmember Helen Rosenthal that will increase the reach of our voter guide and both printed and online, accessible through our website at voting.nyc, to communities with low English proficiency, to voters with vision or hearing challenges. It will expand the number of languages that we translate the guide into to 10 top citywide languages, in addition to translations that we currently provide in Spanish, Chinese, Korean, and Bengali. We will in the future be translating those guides into Russian, Haitian Creole, Arabic, Urdu, French, and Polish, in addition to providing additional accessibility measures that will make both the guide online, video statements that are provided by the candidates, and that printed guide that gets mailed and distributed to all registered voters more accessible to more populations. The other, just to note for members of the committee and folks joining us, is a bill sponsored by Danis Rodriguez that we expect will be voted on tomorrow to expand voting rights in city elections to non-citizens. While this would be a dramatic expansion of the city electorate, estimates of between 800,000 and 900,000 newly eligible voters could potentially join the voting rolls for city elections. The legislation that will be before the council gives the CFB a role in distributing voter registration forms to this population and educating these newly eligible voters about their rights and opportunities on this bill. So these are just two measures up this week in the closing weeks of the City Council that we do hope will have an impact on voter engagement generally in New York City in a really positive way. So I want to move now into what we all came to hear, testimony from members of the public. Just a few reminders before we get started. We're going to ask all speakers as they start to provide that brief visual description. As a reminder, we are, hopefully you can see it, we're providing ASL translation as we go. Closed captioning and live transcripts as well. These are accessible in your Zoom menu here on the bottom of the screen. We are also making Spanish interpretation available live for those who would like it. And to access that, you can click on the interpretation function in that Zoom menu down at the bottom of your screen. And you can join and tune into the hearing via that separate audio channel. we have a list of people who testified. We're going to call on you in order. As I call on you, you'll be promoted into the room. I'll take a second to join, go off mute, turn the camera on, and then we will, the floor will be yours. So with those kind of housekeeping measures out of the way, let's get started. I want to first call on Laura Wood, the city's Chief Democracy Officer from Democracy NYC, as our first panelist.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Eric, and everyone from the Campaign Finance Board and the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee. My name is Laura Wood. I am a white female. I have dark brown hair, wearing a black sweater. I have glasses on and sitting in my home office where you can see some artwork of deceased cats on the wall. Beloved former pets. Anyway, I want to thank the CFB and the VAAC for always holding these hearings after primary and general elections, which really serve as a great opportunity to hear directly from voters. And I am a voter, but I'm here on behalf of the Mayor's Democracy NYC initiative. But I will of course keep my remarks short so that we can really get to the meat of this hearing this evening. As we have been doing for several years now, Democracy NYC, along with several key partners, including of course the CFB, worked to ensure that voters were provided with information about what was on the ballot this fall. Of course, all of the municipal races, as well as the ballot proposals, and really tried to develop some materials about what was at stake in the election. And as part of that effort, we ran ads in bus shelters, in community and ethnic media outlets. We created multilingual resources and palm cards. We conducted texting and phone banking days of action and multilingual workshops about voting and about the ballot questions. We co-hosted a series on the ballot questions with the group Women Creating Change. And we hosted 2 very large-scale in-person events, one for National Voter Registration Day back in September, and then in late October, a Get Out the Vote event. The first was in Brooklyn and the second was in the Bronx. One of the slogans we used in our media campaign this fall was "Neighborhoods have power," and that's something that we wholeheartedly stand by at Democracy NYC, and why we have worked to continue to try to really center the voices of the community in our creative content. And we also have always emphasized multilingual ads. This past cycle, we had ads in English, Spanish, Urdu, simplified Chinese, traditional Chinese, Arabic, Russian, Bangla, Yiddish, Haitian Creole, Korean, and Nepali, which, as I mentioned, were placed in community and ethnic media outlets and circulated organically, and used. All of those languages were featured in a multilingual voter resource guide. As the committee knows, we went into the general election coming off the June primary, where we experienced a surge in voter turnout, the highest turnout we had seen for a municipal primary in 30 plus years. Things were not quite as bright this past general election, and despite the hard work of so many groups and individuals, voter turnout was quite low, with only about 23% of eligible active voters casting a ballot for mayor. This was down from the previous mayoral general elections in 2017 and 2013. So it is clear that more work is needed to ensure that New Yorkers have their voice heard. That will probably require some form of continued outreach work, and also an assessment of, the structure and schedule of our elections. We have been pushing for a long time for reforming the New York City Board of Elections. I really appreciated Ms. Loprest's salute to Dawn Sandow, and I also want to wish her the best. There are many good people at the board, but the agency as a whole really still is in need of significant overhaul if we are really going to serve the needs of New York City voters. One other piece that I wanted to make sure to share tonight is that in an effort to center the voices of New Yorkers in all of these conversations, we have launched a voter experience survey in partnership with the Public Advocate's Office and the People's Tech Assembly. It is a very quick and easy survey to complete. It should only take about 5 to 10 minutes. I don't know if it's possible for me to share anything in the chat, but I can read the URL. It is on.nyc.gov/voting survey. And the goal of the survey is to collect data from voters, which will help inform future BOE reform policy recommendations. So I hope that's of interest to this committee and to voters in general. And again, I want to thank you all for this platform this evening. And with that, I will turn it back to Eric, and I look forward to hearing from voters. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Laura, for being with us tonight. Thank you for your partnership during these last few years, and for all the work that you and your team have put into to engage New Yorkers and get them interested and excited about voting. I want to look next to Jamel of Vandenberg. Is Jamel with us?
It doesn't appear so.
Looks like not.
Yeah, he's here.
Oh.
He should be in the yeah.
You know what? I just realized I was on mute, and I was
no worries.
to myself for a couple minutes. Can everybody hear me?
We hear you now. Please, we got you loud and clear. Please start when you're ready.
Camera on. There we go. All right.
All right.
Good evening to everybody. My name is Jamel of Vandenberg. I am here representing New York Institute of Technology, where I am currently a professor teaching Foundations of Inquiry and American Government and Politics. And for the time that I have been at New York Institute of Technology, I have worked my hardest to make sure that my students understand the election process. They understand the importance of being civically engaged, and they understand the importance of the issues that are happening in their communities and how they are impacting them. I don't think necessarily a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds understand what these issues are that are hitting them now. I don't think they necessarily understand the importance of the people who are running for office, and they tend to ignore it like nothing has happened. And to be very honest with you, it's a frustrating thing, but at the same time, it leads to an opportunity. Because if you can meet students where they are, and if you can help to educate them to where these issues are important to them, it helps to change the dynamic. In terms of this past election, my honest opinion, I thought it was a bit of a mess, especially because of the introduction of ranked choice voting. Because as we're talking about different issues happening, even on a federal level, trickling down, my opinion is that ranked choice voting may have led to a little bit of distrust amongst the voting constituency. Now, traditionally, every election after a presidential election historically has lower turnout, but we need to change that dynamic because usually the election after a presidential election has the more higher implications because all of the general elections are happening locally, and we all know that local elections are what helps to drive our state and federal politics. I'm pretty sure I've gone over the 2 minutes, so I'm going to stop right there. I thank you for your time. I thank you for allowing me to speak this evening, and I definitely hope to be able to reach out, communicate, and network with you all in the near future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jamel, for those comments. Thank you for really highlighting the importance of kind of helping voters understand what's at stake when they go vote, what kind of impact they can have on the issues that they live with and experience every day. So those are some really useful and valuable comments. And thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight.
Thank you. I do have to head off, but thank you for having me.
For sure. Up next, we're going to call on Yasmin Campbell. Is Yasmin with us?
She is. She should be on in a second.
Hello, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please begin when you're ready.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity to testify tonight before the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee. My name is Yasmin Campbell and I reside in the Bronx. I am a member of Downstate New York Adapt, it's a group of people of all types of disabilities, and we advocate for civil rights of people of all kind of disabilities. And my experience with the voting was I am a person who was visually impaired. So when I went with my teenage son, he was 13 at the time, and I voted at a community center in the Bronx where I live, and I had my red and white cane out. So I'm sure everybody doesn't know what that means, but I thought it was universal. But when I went to speak to someone there, they gave me the ballot and just told me to just go over there to fill it out. And being someone who was visually impaired, going over there doesn't mean anything to me when you can't see. So I think my issue, I would say, is that the poll workers, that there would be more training for them with when they deal with certain people in the community with different disabilities. So it wasn't until, I'm going to say yesterday, that I learned that I could have voted independently if there was, if I was able to use a ballot marking device and some headphones, where I could have listened to the choices on the ballot, and then would have been able to make my choices, alone, instead of having my son there reading it to me. So, and I think that if you get the word out to the community, that everybody should know that, you do have these kind of accommodations for people with vision issues, that we still count, and, we want to be able to cast ballots as well, but we need it to be made more accessible for us. So having things like the headphones and a ballot marking device would definitely help us, still participate in this, in this event and still count. So thank you for letting me speak. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Yasmin, for your comments and just those important reminders and for sharing your experience.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to call on Cesar Vargas. Vargas, are you with us, Cesar?
I'm not sure, Cesar, if you could maybe just use the raise hand function. I'm having a different name pop up. That would make it a little easier for me to spot you if you are here.
All right, we'll give it another few seconds if Cesar's here. If
Got it.
All right.
Promoting now.
Okay.
So I'll have him in a second.
This is the same Cesar who signed up to speak.
Hi, everyone. I'm not sure if there's two Cesars, so I might be stealing somebody else's spot. But
well, if he comes back, we'll get to him.
Yep.
Perfect.
So why don't you just jump in and
Sure.
Give it a go.
Hi, I'm Cesar. I'm a light-skinned Latino. I have a bare face, dark features, curly hair. I'm very happy to be here tonight. So my name is Cesar Ruiz. I'm an Equal Justice Works legal fellow, sponsored by the Levon Harris family, working with Latino Justice PearlDeaf in the area of voting rights and redistricting. Latino Justice PearlDeaf is a Latinx civil rights organization dedicated to protecting the rights of Latino community members across the nation. Since its inception in 1972, we have worked tirelessly to ensure that Latinos have equitable access to our electoral system. In that same vein, we want to take a moment to share some feedback on problems we saw in the past general election, as well as ways to improve. And then before I get into some of the issues, I just want to thank the Commission for their work, New York City Campaign Finance Board and partners in this work. I think together and collectively, we've strove for great things and we've reached great heights. And with that, we want to, give feedback in ways that we can improve. And so just moving into some of the issues that we observed, issues with messaging and clarity, particularly around as it pertains to language access minorities, which created accessibility issues. Two examples of this can be seen in ballot proposal 1. 13% of New Yorkers didn't fill out ballot proposal 1. In the Bronx, where Latinos make up 54.2%, it was at 26%. So we're seeing about double. And we can see the impact, particularly in a community that has a high proportion of language minority community members. Another issue would just, as been mentioned on this call, lower turnout. The Bronx of concern, and more data is coming out, but the lowest was in the Bronx at 17%. And so that's something of concern in terms of how are we engaging these community members and how can we best create messaging that affects their ability to cast their vote and show up on these very important elections, as mentioned. It's not enough to just engage. We have to be meaningful with our engagement, and gaps shown in communities with language access issues is something that we really have to address. And I'd like to thank Laura Wood to see kind of the efforts that have been done and just think about ways. And so as I move into solutions, it's something that kind of just creates more of a participatory process. And so one of the solutions I see is, limiting the use of hyper-technical language. We saw a lot of feedback anecdotally about kind of the language of ballot proposal 1 and how confusing it was and individuals not being engaged or informed enough to really understand. And then second is just investing and revamping existing tools. Both the paper voting guide and what we hope to pass is Intro 2438 with the video voter guide, just looking at ways that these tools can be used to broaden access in a meaningful way. And so we can only really do that by a participatory process. And the city is engaged in this process, but it's just encouraging and giving new ideas. Written and oral surveys, we saw that one is going to be circulating, so that's welcome news. Focus group testing is another tool that can be used. We know that this is resource intensive, but we like to use our voices to get tools that can, broaden that scope. And then just continuing the language access voting education trainings and ways that, we as advocacy groups can support that and collaborate. We're always there, but we also find those to be incredibly useful. And then just looking at alternative models. One of the models I'll cite is graphicadvocacy.org, and I could share some of that information, but it's a tool that really engages in this participatory process, and it gives us kind of an idea and insight of community-oriented tools. And this process, the last point I'll make, it just becomes even more important with Intro 1867, which would expand voting rights to a new class of voters. Around 1 million individuals would now be brought into this, and so we have to be clear in our messaging. And then Intro 2438, which is the video voter guide. These are great tools, and we really just want to make sure that they're as inclusive as possible. And so I'll close with just saying that we're ready to support, and we appreciate all the work that you're doing. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Cesar. Thank you for taking the time to be here and sharing your perspective. Just want to echo, your point about, just ensuring that we're always using clear language, plain language that can be understood by everyone. And so we're thank you for your partnership and your participation in the Elections Consortium over the year, and look forward to continuing this conversation.
Thank you so much.
We are going to move down our list. Next, we call on next. Actually, what I'll start to do, and Danielle, thank you for this suggestion. I'll list our next 3 speakers in order so folks can be ready. So next, we're going to call on Melissa Severe. Following her will be Ahmed Butt and Bella Wang. But let's call up Melissa to speak next.
So I'm not seeing Melissa as an attendee. So maybe we can just jump down to Ahmed, and Melissa, if she does pop on, I'll kind of keep an eye out.
Yeah. Melissa, if you are here just under a different name, please just shoot us a little message in the chat and let us know. We'll move down to Ahmed and go on from there.
Hello. Hi. Well, first, I just want to say thank you to the CFB and VAAC for having me here and for hosting these hearings consistently after each election. For my description, I'm a South Asian man with brown hair and a beard. My name is Ahmed Butt. I'm the Civic Engagement Coordinator with the Asian American Federation. AAF represents a collective voice of more than 70 member nonprofits serving 1.3 million Asian New Yorkers. So what I wanted to talk about mostly was about language access provisions. And this is something that Cesar had mentioned as well. But there was confusion, especially around the ballot proposals that we saw with, statistically with the percentage of people in different neighborhoods who are filling out the proposals. We saw the same thing in the primary with ranked choice voting, where in neighborhoods, like the Upper East Side, Upper West Side, use of ranked choice voting was above 90%, but in neighborhoods with large Asian populations, such as Flushing and Sunset Park, it was closer to 70%. There was, what I am hearing from community members and from the organizations that we work with as part of our AAPI Power Coalition, is that people are confused about what access they do have for different language resources. So resources that our coalition members create, resources that the CFB creates or the mayor's office create, sometimes they will cover languages that aren't covered by the Board of Elections. And this kind of segmentation creates a bit of an issue, confusion for people who really want assurances that throughout that education and voting process, they'll have access to resources and materials like essential docs, like registration forms and ballots in the languages that they're being reached out to. So not only that, but also being sure that they have an interpreter available. And we're hearing of people being unaware of policies like that, they could bring their own interpreter. with the potential new voters, like over 800,000, and a lot of those voters would be LEP, it's really important that those language needs are considered. I do have a couple recommendations. One is just on quality control in general for translations. I think it's really essential that the translated materials convey their intended meaning. This is something that with the ballot proposals you saw, like sometimes the language is very technical, and making sure that those translations are actually meeting, like, are culturally responsive, and that they're cover different dialects, differences in dialect, and are in plain language, in the language that they're being translated into as well. So my recommendation there is to partner with Cbos who work with LEP communities to do proofreading and verifying the quality of the translations. Another recommendation that I have is partnering with Cbos to collect surveys. I know that the CFB is doing surveys, that's great, but I think partnering with the Cbos who work with LEP voters, it would be easier to get feedback from people who normally wouldn't be receiving survey information from the CFB. So just making sure that it actually gets in people's hands. Right, and in addition to that, for translated materials, I think too, instead of just having direct translations, it would be best for those translated materials to prioritize information on language access measures, such as the availability of interpreters, so people know what language access rights they have. And that's all I have as far as my piece, but thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you all too, and thank you.
Ahmed, thanks for taking the time to be with us. Thank you for your perspective and really just that clarity, about really seeking to ensure that we can provide that same level of communication and service to every population, no matter how they, what language they prefer to receive it in. So I thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Eric.
So next up, we're going to call on Bella Wang. Following Bella, we'll hear from Michael Ring and Patrick Yeko. But first, let's bring Bella up.
Hello, let me just start my camera. So I am Bella Wang. I am the voting reform chair for the League of Women Voters for the city of New York. I am an Asian woman who wears glasses. My hair is in a ponytail. I'm wearing a check shirt. I hope that's enough info. So to actually get to our testimonies. So we would like to talk a little bit about the poll worker experience, because we found that this is an important part of the experience for voters, and one that has not been mentioned so much. So in order to improve the experience of voters at poll sites, we believe that poll workers should not be political appointments. The patronage system that is currently used to hire poll workers for early voting and election day work is detrimental to a positive experience for the voters. Furthermore, the 17-hour days required to be an election day poll worker discourage many qualified people from seeking these positions. So we believe that poll workers should be hired for shifts of varying hours to encourage more people to apply for these jobs. And to that point, we should also believe that poll workers should be paid hourly rather than a day rate. So these are issues that have persisted from the time we voted on lever machines. Also to highlight some details. Number one, poll workers should be transparently recruited and must be better trained. So a specific suggestion is to create a training procedure that is modeled along the lines of applying for driver's licenses in New York State. So the DMV model, you might call it. We'd love it if the Board of Elections could, first of all, make available all year long at all times copies of the poll workers manual. That way citizens who want to be inspectors could pick up hard copies or download the manual from the board's website. And study the manual. At that point, the prospective inspector would come into a board office and take a written test, an open book test, because that is how it will be at the poll site. When the prospective prospective inspector completes and passes the written test, they should be able to move on to hands-on training with the scanner, the BMD, and the electronic poll book, analogous to, at a DMV, a would-be driver being given a permit to practice driving a car after passing a written test. These hands-on classes should also emphasize voter service. So we want simulations of common types of interactions with voters at poll sites. One virtue of this model is that individuals who are thinking about poll workers will be able to self-select. So the person who cannot or does not want to read a manual will be less likely to apply. And another virtue of this model is that the BOE can kind of dispense with this more lecture style of teaching. We would want trainers to create real interactive lessons rather than reading the manual out loud to students. Secondly, the BOE should be encouraged to hire poll and site inspectors to work split shifts. So the hours that poll workers are asked to work have increased steadily since the days of lever machines. So we have 9 days of early voting, which are also becoming lengthier days. Election law section 3400 permits actual split shifts. So the BOE should calculate a reasonable hourly rate for poll workers and recruit and deploy inspectors for shifts shorter than the full day. The long hours are a significant deterrent to recruiting capable folks who have a desire to serve their fellow citizens along the front lines of democracy. And furthermore, the BOE should fully embrace the alternative poll site staffing plan. This is the model we have a model that we presently have for early voting. So on early voting days, we have ballot stations rather than ED tables. Voters have been efficiently served in what we've begun to call any line, anytime. So the most experienced and best trained employees should be able to staff a table for affidavits, handling all issues that go beyond just identifying voters and distributing ballots. This early voting model permits coordinators to move inspectors from one job to another, depending on situational needs. Alternative staffing plans like this work hand in glove for split shift workers, since there are times of the day when more or fewer workers may be required. We think this should be the standard for all election days. And speaking this on behalf of Diane Burrows, who is the co-president, who was not able to make it today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bella. Thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight and for your focus on really just that experience that voters have at the poll site, which is really, that's in the hands of the poll workers. So thank you for your focus on that, and again, for your testimony. So next up we have Michael Ring. And so on deck after Michael, we have Patrick Yako and Tasha Lerbours. Hopefully you'll correct me if I bungled that pronunciation. But first, if Michael is here, let's hear from Michael.
He is here. It's just taking a second for him to get promoted to panelist. For some reason, he's not jumping in. So what I'm going to do just for the time being is just allow him to talk and see if we could go that way. Michael, we should be able to hear you when you unmute yourself.
Michael, are you there?
Why don't we jump down for now, and we'll give Michael a shout as we get through.
Michael, we will come back to you. We are not going to get out of here without hearing from you. But in the interim, let's invite Patrick to give his testimony while we work on getting Michael. All right, Patrick, we see you.
Good
to
evening.
hear you. All right.
Perfect. Thanks for the opportunity to share testimony at tonight's Voter Assistance Advisory Committee meeting. My name is Patrick Yako. I'm a white male with brown hair, brown eyes, and a beard, and I'm a resident of Astoria, Queens. I'm a longtime voter as well as a poll worker and volunteer with NYC Votes. First, I'd like to start off by saying that I moved to a new apartment on October 1st. One of the first things I did was change my voter registration to my new address, and I was anxious that my information wouldn't be updated in time for the general election. However, I submitted my information through the New York State DMV website and was happy to see that my documentation was processed in a timely manner. My information was updated within the BOE's voter rolls, and I was able to vote using my new address. Following that change, I requested an absentee ballot. I did so through the BOE portal and received confirmation that the application was submitted successfully. Using the online tracker, I was told that my ballot was out for delivery on October 23rd. However, my absentee ballot never arrived. I tweeted at the NYC BOE on October 28th, and I had a short conversation with someone through DMs. I was told that my ballot was in the hands of the Postal Service. And while I appreciate the connection on Twitter, unfortunately, I don't think there's much that the BOE could do at that point. Given how close it was to Election Day, I decided to vote early. I have to say that my early voting experience was overall very pleasant. I was able to check in at any table and received the proper ballot. Completed it, scanned it, and went on with my day. While not as convenient as voting by mail, I was glad that I was still able to cast a ballot in this year's general election. I hope that the BOE can work more closely with the post office to ensure that ballots are properly delivered. I've received numerous pieces of mail from the Queens BOE, such as the notice of my transfer, but I'm not sure why my ballot wasn't able to get to me. Perhaps there can be staff at both agencies to better coordinate this activity. In addition to this, I'd like to suggest that Election Day voting be handled like early voting. It's really convenient to check in with any available poll worker and get a ballot printed on demand. It not only saves time by not having to wait specific AD/ED tables, but it seems much more environmentally friendly. I know that on Election Day, many AD/ED tables are left with hundreds of ballots which could go to waste if not properly disposed of. In addition to my experience as a voter, I'd like to briefly share some observations from my time as a poll worker. On Election Day in November, I was stationed at PS 122 at Ditmars Boulevard in Astoria, and it seemed like many voters were concerned about election security and so-called voter fraud. More specifically, some voters were nervous that they didn't have to present ID at check-in, and some were concerned of having to answer too many questions in order to receive a ballot. Given the national conversation around election security and voter rights, I wonder if there are opportunities to inform voters on what to expect at check-in and what information they need to give to poll workers. Trust in our public institutions is in short supply at the moment, but hopefully this could start to build and rebuild support for election administrators. Finally, I would like to also share my concern about low voter turnout in this year's general election. As has been stated before, about 23% of eligible active voters cast a ballot for mayor, the lowest in nearly 7 decades. I know there are many reasons to vote or not to vote as there are voters. And I also know that NYC Votes conducts massive voter campaigns, massive volunteer campaigns to try and encourage folks to vote. I participated in several of these volunteer opportunities and want to thank folks like Sean O'Leary and Omar Suarez for their work organizing and motivating us. Nevertheless, I wonder if there are opportunities to remove structural barriers to voting, such as nonpartisan primaries, which could increase participation. I understand this would require interventions by state government and that this is a bigger issue than one election, but I hope more research is done to help turn out more voters. Overall, I had a pleasant voting experience for this past general election. I was able to cast a ballot at a local polling site. I was confident my vote got counted. However, there's definitely room for improvement, such as better follow through with absentee mail balloting. Additionally, again, I'd like to see Election Day handled more like early voting and hope there are more opportunities to prepare voters on what they can expect at polls and also recommend ways for stronger voter turnout. Thanks for the time. I look forward to voting again in June.
Patrick, thank you for being here with us tonight. I actually have a quick question. Did you ever get your absentee ballot?
No. I actually checked to the tracker today and it said that it got returned to the BOE marked undelivered.
Got it. Well, it's, thank you for sharing the story. It's important to remember, mailing ballot issues were not kind of front and center in this past election, but it's an important reminder that they're still there. the challenges exist and need to continue to be an area of focus. So I want to thank you for being here with us tonight. I want to thank you for putting your time where your mouth is and spending time with us, getting people to ready to vote, and hope we'll continue those volunteer efforts with us in the future.
Thank you.
All right, so we're getting close to the end of our list. We've Tasha, if she's here, after her on our list. Actually, pardon me. Before we get to Tasha, I want to see if we can get Michael back. Jordan, are we able to? If we're able to get Michael Ring?
Yeah, I'm gonna try promoting him again.
Okay.
Let's see what happens.
Don't want to skip over again.
Yeah, he's here. He might just be away from his computer at the moment. So maybe we jump down again. And Michael, if you are here, please let us know, and we'll get you up here.
Okay. The next name on our list was Tasha. I think again we don't see Tasha's name in the list of attendees, but Tasha, if you are here, please shoot us a message or raise your hand. And after Tasha on our list is Kathryn Collins. So let's if we could get ready to bring Kathleen up to speak. And I'll just note if there are folks here who've joined us, members of the public who would like to take a few minutes to share your experience during the election, please, raise a hand in Zoom, shoot us a chat message, and we'll call on you to share your story with us. But in the meantime, let's get ready to hear from Kathy if she's with us.
You want me to go next?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is
Kathy.
Kathryn Collins, and I want to thank you for this opportunity to testify tonight before the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee. I am a co-coordinator for the Voter Engagement Working Group with my working group of Downstate New York ADAPT with Michael Ring and a couple other people. And we are a grassroots, non-hierarchical community of people with all types of disabilities advocating for the civil rights of people with disabilities, including, but not limited to, the right to live and fully participate in the larger community. I have resided in Manhattan for over 20 years, and I am a quadruple amputee from birth. Presently, the ballot marking devices, also known as BMDs, are starting to break down and are at a critical stage. We feel that if new ballot marking devices are not certified within the next year or so, many more voters with disabilities will be disenfranchised. We understand that there is a certification process that new BMDs must go through before they can be purchased. However, we submit that this is a critical issue, this issue of them getting very old and they're not being maintained because they can't be maintained. I know the maker of them is not maintaining them anymore. The manufacturer, I should be saying. So therefore, this needs to be placed front and center, this issue. We have repeatedly testified before this committee about these breakdowns of the ballot marking devices. And we will have more stories probably in our written testimony on that. We don't want to belabor it here, but we will set that forth. I hate to say this, but Michael Ring, who is a voter with a disability and a poll worker, he has a wonderful recommendation. And if he was going to tell us tonight, I'm sorry, Michael, I'm telling you about your recommendation right now, and you can say, yeah, that's mine. So here it is, in case he can't get on. And his recommendation is that before the doors are open to the voting public each morning of early voting and the morning of election day, it be required that the poll workers perform an operational check of the BMDs. And if there's, I know in New York County, we just have the BMDs and then you have the scanning device is the actual voting machine. So if there are places where they have the two in one machine, and there's an accessible voting machine, we would say that this requirement should apply to those machines. But I know this is only for New York City, so we have the BMD right now as a separate machine. So what would we want would be every morning of early election and on the general election day, that the poll workers be able to perform an operational check of the BMDs by using a mock or a mock ballot or a voided ballot that they could put into the BMD to make sure that it's working. And if it's not working, that they have a procedure in place that would quickly correct the problems and malfunctions identified from these test runs in the morning, so that the problems could be rectified before the doors are open to the actual voters. We have other matters, like I said before, that we will discuss further in our written testimony, and that we will submit within the next few days. So I just want to thank you again for listening to us and keeping your ears open to our ideas. And I want to thank Michael for this wonderful recommendation. He has come up with this super thing, and we don't want it just to be used for now that they're breaking down, but we'd like this to happen going forward always in the future too. So thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Kathy, for taking the time to be with us. Thank you for speaking up for Michael. If in case we can't get him into the meeting, and just thanks for your advocacy and your partnership over this year. It's been truly remarkable, and we appreciate you
too at the CFB, because you're one of the few people that are giving us truly accessible meetings. So I just want if you could send this to the city council so that they could learn, and also to our New York State legislators, that would be great.
So thank you for that. And I'll take this as an opportunity to just thank the folks on our team who are working hard to make sure that all happens tonight. Just Jordan.
Oh, and I just have one other thing. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I forgot to give a audio description myself. So I'm a bad girl here. So I have a short reddish brown hair. I'm a white lady in her 60s, and I have brown eyes, and I'm wearing green headphones, and I'm wearing a pink no sleeve top. Thanks a lot. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Kathy. And so I'll just make sure I follow through and make sure I thank Jordan for his work and kind of really like handling all the arrangements for what you just observed, Kathy, getting everybody lined up to help make this meeting as accessible as we can possibly make it. To Ali, who's helping to manage what you're seeing on the screen.
Oh, well, you have a great staff. And if I had a finger, I'd be doing a thumbs up right now. You can do it for me, Eric.
Thank you, Kathy.
No, thank you.
I see a note from Michael. Let's see if we can get Michael in before we move on.
I think we got him. Should be just a second.
Unmute and start video. Hi. Yes, I'm a poll worker as well as a voter with a disability, and it just occurred to me when we were setting up the ballot marking devices that we never know if they're working or not until a voter comes to use them, because you don't know. They were tested in the warehouse, loaded onto a truck, then unloaded off a truck, and then set up in the polling place, and it may or may not work. It's a mechanical device with rollers and stuff. So it would be a simple thing to just run a piece of paper through it and to see if it works, but we're not allowed to ever do any special things. So if it doesn't even have to be a ballot. It can just be, let's make sure the rollers work. That's really was my idea. Maybe until we replace them, we can make sure they work, and that would make sure they get opened up, because a lot of polling places, they'd never even get turned on. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for raising that up and making sure that's heard. It's a good issue for us to lift up and make sure that it's shared with Board of Elections. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your partnership and your participation in the conversations we've had over the year. And for being with us tonight.
Thanks.
So we had two names on our sign-up list who we haven't heard from. I'll give one last call for Melissa Sevier, Tasha Lerabord. Give a second if they're here, but also just one last request. If there are folks with us who have not signed up in advance but would like to be heard this evening, please give us a raised hand or
we got a raised hand, Eric.
All right.
So I am going to promote Pamela.
All right, Pamela Stewart Martinez. As soon as you're on the panel and off mute, please begin.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Pamela Stewart Martinez. I'm an African-American woman with Black hair and brown skin, and I'm wearing a black top. I am the female district leader in the 87th Assembly District in the Bronx. And I have to say that I loved hearing everything that I heard today. Even some of the more critical statements about the patronage within the Board of Elections. I enjoyed hearing that because I feel like, yeah, this is a democracy and people should be able to speak their point. And Bella, you made excellent points that if you can believe it, there's a county committee meeting in the Bronx today with like the party position folks. And if they give me an opportunity to speak at this meeting, I hope you don't mind. I plan to take a lot of what I'm hearing today to them. This has been super informative. I kind of wish that there was a way that, or I don't know if you've ever tried reaching out to some of the party folks to see if they would sit in and hear this. I think it would be important and it should be presented to them that they should come and listen so that we all can do a better job. And so that's pretty much all I had to say. I just really love this, you know, I really do love this. And thank you for doing this.
Pamela, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your perspective. You know, I couldn't agree more that I mean, we would love to have the parties as true partners in this work to really get as many people voting as we possibly can. So we really appreciate having you here and thank you for sharing.
Oh, can I ask one quick question?
Please.
Someone mentioned, because I'm from the Bronx and I heard a couple of Bronx things, that 26% of Bronx residents didn't answer ballot question 1. What, am I right there? Or was it 26% of Bronx folks didn't, I mean, only 26% of Bronx voters answered ballot question number 1. Does anyone have the answer to that question? Because I want to make sure I present it correctly. That's it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have the number off the top of my head. I'll look towards Ali.
It was one of the people who had it. Yeah.
I believe it was Cesar had this information. For a while, the State Board of Elections had the drop-off information on their website, but I cannot currently find it. We can send it over to you, Pamela, if yep, Cesar will circulate the article in just 1 second.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Cesar. You're my friend in my head. Like, or maybe we can be friends after this.
See, you just get the right people together and that answer is going to come up one way or another.
Oh, and actually, I just found the results reporting too. So you're going to need to sort it by county breakdown, and then you can select the Bronx, and you can see how the reporting compares everywhere. New York State did a really good job with this.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Pamela.
Guys.
I see one more raised hand. So Griselle Ortiz Thompson, is that Jordan? Can we promote her to say a few words?
Yep, coming in now.
Hello.
Hi, we're here. You can begin when you're ready.
Oh, wonderful. My name is Ortiz Thompson. I am a fairly light-skinned Latina woman, Black hair. I am in my living room, multitasking. So I have a portrait picture up with a black top and red, white, and black checkered sweater. I, as well, am a district leader in West Harlem in the 70th Assembly District. I am also a poll worker during early voting. On election day, I am a poll watcher, and periodically I do some post-election work at the Board of Elections. And not critical of the process that goes on election day, granted, with all that has been said. And I didn't hear the full extent since I am on another call as well. But for the most part, I think the Board of Elections does a pretty good job with the process of getting these sites fully staffed and occupied. There are challenges. Nothing is ever perfect. And there are some hiccups along the way. I can testify to the issues with the BMDs as well in my district. That's an excellent idea that was submitted. And I just, with all the criticisms, it's a big task being in different perspectives and looking at all of the working pieces. And so I feel that there's always room for improvement, obviously, but I do want to give credit to the CFC and the BOE and all those who are partners in this endeavor, except for the debacle that occurred with the ranked choice voting. Understandably, it is the first time out, but in reporting the stats on the fundings and the amounts of money that went out, I am critical of that. Was not a supporter, still am not a supporter. I think all of that funding that was spent could have been put to use in so many other critical areas. But with that said, overall, I thank all participants for their work in making this democratic process one of the best that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Griselle, for being with us tonight. Thank you for sharing your perspective and for your work, your own work in making this democracy the best it can be. I do see before we move on, we have Tasha with us. Do we want to, Jordan, let's bring her in and hear from Tasha.
Hi, this is my first time here. I'm not even sure if I clicked on the right button.
Well, we can hear you.
Okay.
So begin whenever you're ready.
All right. Yes, my name is, good evening. My name is Tasha Lerabors. I'm a voting access organizer and trainer for the Center for the Independence of the Disabled New York. I'm testifying before you to share the voting experiences of some of our consumers at the last election. A common complaint I have heard from consumers and colleagues is that the ballot marking device did not work properly. While some voters were fortunate to have a poll worker to help them when the BMD machine malfunctioned, not all voters were lucky enough to have poll workers who were familiar with the BMD. Monica Bartley, a colleague of mine, tried to mark her ballot with the BMD and it would not print. The machine jammed. A poll worker tried to fix it while she waited on them to clear the jam and reboot the machine. Unfortunately, the same thing happened again during her second attempt, so she had to mark her ballot by hand. Another colleague of mine, Michael Rink, he says the BMD should be tested before the polls open. No one knows if it is broken or not until someone tries to vote. There's also a lack of awareness about the ballot marking device, as one consumer who had asked to make the font size larger on their ballot. This voter did not know that using the ballot marking device could enlarge the font. No voter should have to return home after a failed voting attempt due to a defective ballot marking device. Everyone deserves the right to vote, even the disabled. There is also the need to educate poll workers about the ballot marking device so that they can better assist voters who need to use this device. Thank you.
Tasha, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your testimony. And it's just a really good, important reminder. BMDs, the ballot marking devices, they're voting infrastructure, and we need to take care of them, make sure that they work. And nobody should lose a vote because they aren't working.
Thank you.
I will make here a last call for anyone who's with us who would like to take a few minutes to share your story about voting in this year's election. If we don't have anyone else, I will just again thank everyone for joining us. Thank the members of the committee. I want to hand it back before we close to Zoilo.
Eric, we just got a quick hand raise.
We got a hand raise.
Yep, we do.
All right. Don't let me act too quickly. All right. Let's
coming in now.
Sorry, who? Oh, is this?
We have Haviland Tejada.
Haviland Tejada, please. I see you. If you come off mute, begin when you're ready.
Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. Thank you all today for your time, and thank you to the New York City Campaign Finance Board for allowing me to speak today. My name is Haviland Tejada, and I am the Civic Engagement Coordinator for Dominicanos USA. Dominicanos USA held a Get Out the Vote phone and text banking campaign for a voter mobilization for the November general elections. Our campaign ran from October the 18th until November 2nd. Calls were made using the Through Talk tool, and during this period, we made a total of over 6,000 phone calls, and we sent over 20,000 text messages. During our phone banking efforts, in particular, we received feedback from our voters. While voters wanted to utilize the early voting option, they found the early voting poll sites to be too far for them to attend. For this reason, they chose to vote on election day. There were also some concerns from voters about not receiving mail-in ballots from the Board of Elections, preventing them from voting with absentee ballots. We did our best effort to inform voters to be aware of the mail-in absentee ballot request deadline, but there were some voters that we were unable to reach. On a brighter note, we saw an increase in voter pledges to go out and vote compared to the primary elections held in June. We also realized that voters did not know whether or not the registrations were up to date. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and for other reasons, many voters had to move. They relied on the Board of Elections to update the registrations automatically to reflect this address change, but many voters did not know how to verify this information. We were able to help voters in real time during our phone banking campaign and help them look up their poll site locations and verify their voter registration information. We also helped voters update their voter registration using our online voter registration portal. With the rejection of ballot proposal number 3 that would have allowed for same-day voter registration, we realize it is important now more than ever for voters to be aware of important dates for updating their voter registrations in order to be able to participate in future elections. Thank you.
Evelyn, thank you for being here. Thank you for all the work you described and for your partnership. We appreciate you taking the time to share your testimony tonight.
Thank you so much.
So I don't want to move too quickly to hand things back to the chair to close us out tonight. If there's anyone else who would like to share your story about voting in this year's election, please give us a raised hand. But going once, going twice. And so to close this out, I'm going to look back to Chair Torres to see if you have any closing words, or if your colleagues on the committee would like to share some thoughts.
Yes, I wanted to share and endorse Pamela Stewart Martinez's comment that a wealth of information has been shared at this hearing. I myself took about close to 4 or 5 pages of notes, abridged notes of things that were said. And I think that the report from the advisory will be rich in information. And as the newly appointed chair of this advisory committee, I'm glad and that that I actually was part of this hearing, and hopefully many of the recommendations and constructive criticisms that were made tonight will be not only made public but also dealt with in the near future. So with that, I would like to close the hearing. Thank you.
So just before we finish, I do see Danielle, as a member of the committee, has a hand raised. Want to make sure that I don't see you on camera yet, but give you a chance to speak. I know you joined us a couple minutes late, but thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you again for tolerating my lateness. I actually have the flu, so I sound funny, but I just wanted to once again thank the staff, to thank everybody who testified tonight, but also to thank the staff who makes these things possible, because you all work so hard all the time. You do the work of a 400-person agency, and it's just amazing the work product that you produce and the seamlessness of the technology in a venue like this. Certainly is unparalleled. I testify a lot in other places and nothing ever goes as smoothly as this. So add that to many of the things I'm grateful for to all of you. So thank you again.
I would like to echo that myself. Thank you.
I see Chris and Ms. Ada with their hands raised. So just with forbearance, let's hear from you guys before we close out from the evening.
Okay, I'll go first if that's all right. I too want to echo what Danielle said about the staff. Just the amazing work. The previous meeting we had 2 months ago was spent largely talking about some of the work being done to get voter education out, get voter participation up. And, I'll just say that I think I was involved with a political campaign 2 decades ago when the CFB or more first started to, do its thing with giving campaign finance funds to candidates. And to see over the decades where the CFB has come to the point where voter advocacy and voter participation, especially amongst groups that are marginalized or groups that have shown low voter participation over time, the outreach has been incredible. I do want to say lastly, Eric, I'm a political scientist by training, and the figure of the 26% voter turnout, I know no one's happy about that. And I know that we would all love to see that number up. But, I think we have to realize, just almost as a matter of scientific fact, that when you don't have competitive elections, voters tend not to participate. It's almost a direct correlation. And I don't know what the CFB or the VAAC can do about competitive elections. We try to get the information out. We try to get voters engaged. But when you do have competitive elections, voter turnout goes up. And so you saw that in some of the districts across the city this time. So while we can bemoan that fact, I think there are some things out of our control, you know, but I just kudos to everybody. Sorry, my daughter is yelling at me now. She's telling me to shut up because she wants dinner. I'm sure you guys do as well. Just great job on everything that you had your power to change and to enact in this election. So, okay, be quiet, Clara. Thank you.
I wouldn't know anything about those challenges. Sorry, Ms. Ada, I want to make sure you get a chance to.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I was listening that the hearing issue, and there was a couple of issues we already resolved a long time ago. Language barriers, and then technical issue is a serious issue. Becomes accidentally it happened. We are agreed to resolve this issue whenever the election coming. We want to make sure that our machine is properly working and our poll worker is more training. And I'm agree with this, that there should not be any political worker should be involved in this issue. And I am so glad because I work my Bangladeshi community since 1990. I find out when I involve, I see there is a lot of improvement which we are trying hard. And another issue is because of COVID-19, some of the issue is delayed. But next time we want to make sure that everything going properly and everything happening accurately. But in this pandemic, nothing in our control. If there is anything can be easily accessible or accurately submitting, and time-wise everything is perfect, I think everything will be going forward accurate. And as a campaign finance back members, I am representing South Asian community all over New York City. I see there is a lot of improvement, which I can see proudly, and I can express proudly that we are trying hard, try to be best, providing our best service. I think everyone should be happy. And we are trying as many as testified, hearing every side of movements. We will be working with you guys as a collaboration, motivation, and engage. And that can be our progress. And we can assure that we will try hard as much as we can improve our advisory board. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Ada. And so with that, I'll give just again one more really quick thanks, to the staff who helped us put this hearing together and really raise the bar in terms of what we can provide an improved, accessible experience. To Jordan, who really did yeoman's work in putting this hearing together tonight. To Ali, who kind of helped play director for us tonight. And really to everyone who's joined us to share their perspective, just raise up some really important issues that are important, that we will take with us and remember as we plan for our next election, and work with our partners at the Board of Elections and across the city to ensure that we can just do better. And with that, Chair Torres, you were about to close us out, but I will look to you to formally close us out tonight.
Well, there's not much more I could say. So I don't know how you close at this point, except for people signing out. And thank everybody for the testimonies and for their attendance tonight. So signing off. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. See you again soon.
Take
Thank
care.
you.